Are you an HR department of one, trying to figure out how to balance task and strategy while keeping up with changes in regulatory compliance? Do you need a fresh outlook on old topics? Then stop what you're doing, grab your coffee, and get ready to recharge. If you have people, you have problems to solve and things to do. Your host is Brenda, a 20-year human resource professional, ready to explore the HR industry with veterans of business and life with fresh eyes and new ideas. Learn about the rapidly evolving changes in employment law around the country, as well as new tactics to deploy and build engagement in your workforce. If you're looking to implement new practices to make your job easier in HR, then this podcast is for you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Best Practices in Human Resource podcast. This is Brenda, and I am excited to have you guys here again joining me. If you are a loyal listener, follower, and have been coming time and time again, thank you so very much. This is just fantastic. And you know what? I would not be able to do this without you. So I really enjoy the fact that you come back, and thank you so very much. And then if you are joining me for the first time, welcome, welcome. This is a pretty fun place to come, and really what my role is here is to kind of help with you share the what and the how in what goes on in human resources. And I'm in the human business, which means that there's a greater number of dynamics in the workplace that require balance and management, but really, that's all part of the game. But today we're going to talk about some juicy things today. We've got the one thing that you all have been waiting for all week since last episode, poster updates. It's the one thing I know you guys just can't get enough of, are poster updates, but that's all right. They're important. You need to have them in place. We're going to take a look at employment law changes across the nation. We're going to talk about how HR helps 10 business pain points. And this is where you can really leverage your skills, your knowledge, and put them to work to help the business that you're working in or help the business you want to get into, address and deal with their pain points. Also, we got the HR question of the day. And lastly, I'm going to teach you how you can get best practices delivered to your inbox. Yeah, it's going to be an awesome show. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, before we go further though, I just want to make sure you guys understand that the information that is available through this podcast is for informational purposes only and not for the purposes of providing any form of legal advice. You should contact your attorney to obtain legal advice with respect to any particular issue. If you do not have an employment attorney, please let me know. Reach out to me, and I may be able to refer one to you through our affiliates program and our friends over at Jackson Lewis. Okay, so let's knock this out. Poster updates. Now, in the last episode, we mentioned the list, and I think we may have added a couple. I don't honestly remember, but that's okay because it's important to stay up on top of these things. The New Year's coming down the line. Posters are changing with the every state has something new that they've added to their books, or they've adjusted like 2 words in a sentence, and now you have to have poster updates, and that's just kind of how it rolls. But it's something you definitely want to stay on top of. And our friends over at the Labor Law Compliance Center are the ones that help keep me updated, so I can help keep you guys updated. So, the following states, effective January 1st, you've got less than 2 weeks to order your posters and get those things up to make sure that you're compliant. Here you go. If you are in the states of Vermont, South Dakota, Oregon, Ohio, Montana, Minnesota, Maine, Florida, Arizona, and Missouri, you all have poster updates. Again, that's Vermont, South Dakota, Oregon, Ohio, Montana, Minnesota, Maine, Florida, Arizona, Missouri. You guys need to update your state posters. I have not seen an update for the federal posters as of yet. I haven't seen anything that's come down the pike on that. But you do need to keep both your federal and your state up. And if you happen to be a federal contractor, you also have to have the federal contracting poster as well. So reach out to our folks at Labor Law Compliance Center. You can actually get to the link by going to the bestpractices.org website, clicking on affiliates, scroll down, and you'll see their image and their icon and their logo, you can get 25% off your purchase. And you're going to be able to use one of two codes. And I'm giving you both of them because I'm not 100% sure when the change is going to take place. But if you put in Posters 2019 or Posters 2020, you'll get 25% off your purchase price. Oh, and by the way, you also won't get any of those nagging, scary emails and naggy, scary mails that mail that comes to you in snail mail, trying to convince you that you're out of compliance and oh my gosh, your posters are out of date, and when in reality you're not. So you can actually take those and throw them in the trash, or you can put them in the shredder and have a little rite of passage. Whatever you like to do, that's not a problem. But just rest assured that you're not going to get that kind of information coming from the Labor Law Compliance Center and our pals over there. Okay, so things to talk about. What is going on in the nation and the employment laws that are changing around the country. I don't have very much, really. Believe it or not, we're going into a new year and there's really not a whole heck of a lot going on. Just got a couple of call-outs. First one is that the USCIS has announced the implementation of H-1B electronic registration for 2021 CAP season. We're already talking about 2021, but it's coming down. And so USCIS has actually announced the implementation program for that. Also, this is kind of interesting for you folks out in California. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has filed a suit to halt AB 51. Again, that's AB 51 or AB 51, but the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is actually in court working to put a stop to that. Over in Colorado, the Colorado Labor Agency has adopted wage rules that actually now include a bar on vacation pay forfeiture. So you want to take a look at that and get caught up and make sure that you are not forfeiting people's vacation when you shouldn't. Excuse me. Also, over in Illinois, the governor over in Illinois has signed employer-friendly amendments to the recreational marijuana law. So, yet another change in the landscape of what's going on with marijuana. Maryland has again amended its data breach notification law. And over in New York, lastly, New York actually prohibits reproductive health decision-making discrimination. I know we talked about that before, but this has popped up again in the headlines. So if you're in that area, you definitely want to take a look and find out what's going on. And that is what we've got across the nation. Alright, so today's episode is about 10 business pain points that every business faces and what you and HR can do to help knock those out and build value for yourself. Now, what this podcast isn't about is what a business can do to address the list. This episode is about what HR can do to help address each one of these items. So these are all issues that I've been involved with helping business owners and leaders address in some fashion. And these are all things that, with your ingenuity and communication and a little bit of research, can help work to address. And you can help knock these things out of the ballpark and no longer have them be pain points. So the first one we're going to talk about is that we're having quality issues with our products. Now, you may initially believe that this is really kind of outside of the realm of HR, and usually with a problem like this, it's going to be either a people issue or a process issue, but to be honest with you, it can actually be just a little bit of both. So a few things HR may be able to help resolve, and includes like helping to review the manufacturing process. After all, we are really a fresh set of eyes. Since we don't perform the role each day, it may be able to identify some holes in the procedure with objectivity. Something else that we can do is help identify if and where there is a need to train people. Is the process documented properly? And if so, are all the steps in place for employees to follow? Is it something that that people understand what these steps are and what the expectations are? You can help review the team to help leadership determine if the right people are in the place to perform the role. And if not, what is the company going to do to ensure that the right person is in place to perform the essential functions of the role? Okay, so that's that one. Next pain point is I need to sell this business. Now, in order for a business to look attractive on paper, it needs to be attractive in the real world. And a lot of that attraction will involve the human capital, which is partially demonstrated on the profit and loss statement and partially in the culture of the company as well. So the HR capital management overall, the big question is, does the company have HR in place? Right? That's a big place to start. Does the organization have HR in place? Well, if you happen to be the person sitting in the HR seat, you can knock that question right out because the answer is yes. The next thing really is to take a look at policies and effective processes. Those things are going to be critical, okay? Because nobody wants to adopt a hornet's nest of issues. Does the company have the effective policies and processes in place in order to effectively manage the human capital in the organization? Now, culture is the intangible asset that touches every aspect of the business. And HR, if it's not there, can help to define, establish, and maintain culture as a partner and as having a seat at the table. But if it is there, the question is, what do you do to help improve it? What do you do to help solidify it? Okay? And then lastly, underselling the business is compliance. Compliance, compliance, compliance. Are all the HR practices in place compliant with federal and state laws? Now, here's something that I'm going to tell you about what happens when a company sells. Hopefully, if you run into this, you are not under the gun. You're not being told that, oh yeah, we're going to be selling the business in 30 days. Typically, when you've got a very effective leader, you have somebody that sees the future far in advance, you're really looking at an organization that is preparing for the owner to exit and retire or exit and move on to something else, probably, hopefully within at least a year at the very minimum, if not up to about 5 years. So really working on preparing the business for sale, crunching the numbers, working with a consultant that will effectively help the transition and build that value that's on paper. It does take time, so it's not like, hopefully it's not like you just get that phone call. It's like, well, hey, guess what, we're selling the business in a week. Fabulous, because there's really not going to be a lot you're going to be able to do with it. Okay, now you're going to love it when I say this one. Our website sucks. That was one of these pain points in preparing for this that came out of a discussion. That is something that, believe it or not, HR can be a part of, or at least we're not the ones that should be taking on the project overall, but there's one very important section that HR does have control over, and that really is the careers page. Okay, it should be highly functional so that you're really able to attract the most qualified talent. Right, this is where people are looking into your company. They want to know what it's like to exist in it, what it's like to work there. So this actually includes, when you're going through this, you want to take a look at your career page, and you want to look at, are your open positions up to date on the website? The job ads, are they actually branding your company as an employer of choice? Job ads should really read like they've been written by the same person. It's called one voice, and that what that does is that keeps consistency. So number of times in the past when I've done career shopping, because I do jump out into the job market just to see what's going on and to better understand the experience, especially when I do the transmission work over at the Honor Foundation. I want to know what it's like for some of these guys. So I'll jump in and I'll kind of career shop a little bit. I'll job shop a little bit. I may even submit something. But when I see a company that has job postings that are written very different from one another, that's kind of like, that's a flag to me. Okay. So if it's a flag to me, it's probably going to be a flag to somebody else because there's no consistency, and consistency is key in this case. Does the link to submit an application or a resume for consideration, is it functioning properly? You'd be amazed that how many times people will post a link and it's actually not working and they don't understand why they're not getting any candidates for something. If your website has video testimonials from past employment experiences, and those are out there, It must exclude any sensitive information. And here's a big one: if you are a federal contractor, you are prohibited to permit any data of any kind establishing the identity of any of your employees. So if you have video testimonials, you're really going to want to seriously consider thinking through these and what the content is that you want released on it, plus making sure that if you're a federal contractor, maybe video testimonials are not your thing. All right, if you post benefit information, be mindful exactly what you post. Otherwise, your competitors may find a way to use it against you. Not so much to, create some sort of legal havoc, but, if you are in a company, you work for a company with some very close contention between, another local provider, well, you ever see that Spy versus Spy comic? That's kind of what it is a little bit between some businesses. They do pay very close attention to what they're putting out, and they do competitor analysis upon each other. So, being competitive isn't just, price, placement, product, and distribution. For a company, it also has to deal with people. So, your competition is paying attention to what you're doing. So, seriously think about how much you want information out there as to what you're willing to offer. Okay, next pain point. Our employee turnover is too high. Now, this one is a very tough one in today's market, simply just because of the way the job market is. I mean, we still have the lowest unemployment we've had in this country for a very long time. We've got more positions available than people to fill them. In some respects, that's a good problem to have, because that means that we have a very healthy economy. However, it doesn't help when we've got companies that are trying to, grow positions and grow their organizations, and it feels like you just can't hang on to those people because they're flipping flopping in and out of jobs. Now, first, are you even tracking turnover to substantiate that statement? That would be the first question I have. So if I heard this, our employee turnover is too high, it's like, okay, so what are you basing that from? Are you, especially if it's coming from somebody who doesn't have anything to do with HR? It's just an observation, which means that it could seem that way, okay? So make sure that you really take a look at your numbers. And you'll need to actually consider if your turnover is high or low for your particular industry, and figure out what that benchmark is. So I'll give you an example. Retail, restaurant industry, both extremely high when it comes to turnover. Okay, but you may have some development, you may have some think tank startups where their turnover isn't as high. Well, those are two completely different types of industries out there. So that's a big question. Is your turnover high or low for your particular industry? And you'll need to figure out what that mark is. And then determine if your workforce turnover is high, or is it high in a particular area. So is it overall, or is it just in a particular department? So is it segmented, right? Is it only high in ops? Is it only high in sales? Is it high in accounting? Is it high in marketing? Is it high in training, right? Figure out where exactly your openings are. And you probably may wind up learning that if you have a segmented turnover that's high within your organization, that there's probably a deeper underlying problem that you're going to wind up having to visit. Review your data to determine how you can better understand why turnover is high. So when you guys are capturing your termination information for your HRM, make sure that you are putting in the reasons why they're leaving. Is it voluntary? Is it involuntary? Right? If it's involuntary, what are the reasons? Try and get the best information out as possible, knowing full well that you may not be getting the most accurate information, because, like I mentioned before, if there are problems in the workplace, then you may not be dialed in, and that's very common. And not that you wouldn't be dialed in, I'm just saying that sometimes employees aren't very honest about why they're leaving. They just kind of want to go without any without any hard feelings or drama and things like that. So something else that you can do is implement some sort of data feeding system to really better understand turnover in your company. And that kind of goes with what I was talking about a little earlier, is HRM. But you also want to look at where in the employee's life cycle your turnover is happening. And is it happening during the hiring process? So when you've just extended an offer and then the person decides to back out on their acceptance and go somewhere else? Is it happening within the first 3, 6, 9, 12 months of a person's employment? Is it happening within their first 3 to 7 years? Or is it happening past their 9 years, right? Or even further on? So those are some, pretty common time frames to look at to determine whether or not, okay, what part of the life cycle. And again, some more data for you guys to really chew on. Okay, so the next one's actually a pretty difficult one. This actually really is probably one of the most difficult ones, and toxic and contentious. But this one is my business partner. Well, he's a jerk. So, and it happens. Business partners don't always play nice together. Sometimes the relationships fall apart, and you're really going to find yourself in a position to where some days you may be able to impact the situation, some days you're not. Okay, probably most days you're not. You may just be able to help get the surviving partner through, or if they sell the company altogether, then hopefully get a new boss. But it's going to be challenging. But being that you work for both partners, really the betterment of the company that they own, mostly, you're going to be faced with dividing loyalties. All right, and there's no way around it, unless one of the partners has completely done something to violate the ethics, has committed some form of criminal act. Then you know what, that makes things a little bit easier, but presents in and of itself a whole new depth and breadth of challenges that come around it too. If the majority of the owner is moving forward with buying out the minority partner, then really your support needs to go to the majority partner, not the minority partner. Okay? If the partners are doing something unethical, then like I said, then you need to determine really whether or not you're staying or going, because it's going to get ugly, and it's going to make a huge impact on you. Okay? That's something I'm in the next episode coming up, I'm talking a little bit about you really have to nourish yourself. And this is one of those areas that you really have to figure out, when are you an advocate for the company? When are you an advocate for the employee? And at what point do you become an advocate for yourself? Because you have to take care of yourself in order to take care of everything else. And when you're in this situation to where it gets uncomfortable and stressy and it's just ugly, you really that's when you have to step up, because usually what happens is that we step back even further and we don't put our needs fall off the list of priorities. All right, and now it's very highly likely, so if you've got some contention between partners, it's very highly likely that lawyers are involved or may be involved very quickly. All right, you will probably fall under some form of legal guidance that the attorney has issued, such as document holds, collection of data, things like that. Okay, if those things come up, you have to comply with them. You can't rebel against, you can't say I'm not doing this, I'm not getting involved. If you get a notice from the attorney, you actually have to work with that attorney directly, or finding out what's going on. I mean, there's a lot of specifics that can fall into that place, but just know that you have to ask questions. You have to make sure that you're doing what's in the best interest of everybody, and that's, I'm sorry, going to be a real challenge. Okay, so what to do about the employees and their needs? Well, there's so many variables that I really could not even begin to calculate these possibilities. However, do not let anybody see your frustration in all of this, and this is probably one of the hardest parts. I've been in this situation, and I'm just going to be honest with you, it's pure hell. And when you've got partners that aren't playing nice in the sandbox, it impacts everybody. Nobody is going to be free from feeling this directly in some form or another. Especially if you are in HR, you're so close to everything. Now everybody's coming to you for that emotional and moral support, because it is hard and it is contentious and it's ugly and it's, it takes the engagement right out of the workplace and it destroys culture. And it's just, it's like being around two cats fighting. You just hope you're not going to, get pulled into that mix. Okay? So make sure that you are doing your best. You cannot sit there and voice your concern. You can't sit there and gossip. You cannot sit there and just tell people, I wish this would go away. You can't do that because people are looking for you to be the strength. So it means you're going to have to figure out internally what's going on for you. Okay? The reason why I say that is that honestly, if HR craps out, then your employees will feel absolutely no hope whatsoever. And honestly, this is kind of a situation that can close a business down just because nobody wants to be there, nobody's going to show up, customers aren't going to, their needs aren't going to be met, money's not going to be coming in, and it's just going to be a mess. Okay? Ugly situation. All right, enough of that. All right, so the next one is that we're not able to keep existing existing customers. Wow. I totally read that wrong. I said exiting customers. That wouldn't have made sense, would it? All right. So, first off the top of your head, other than my grammatical faux pas there, you may start thinking that, like, well, isn't this more of a sales thing, right? Well, not really. This is actually retention, is what this is. So, once you get your people in the door, now you got to keep them in the door, right? So, this is where HR has the ability to work and I help identify what key performance measures or key performance indicators are needed to maintain those client relationships, right? What on the balance scorecard is needed in order to better make sure that we understand that this segment of the business is doing what it's supposed to. This segment of the business, these are the things like the KPMs and the KPIs, key performance measures and key performance indicators. This is what a company defines as helping the company to continue to move forward. Okay. So really what HR can do is help analyze who's performing and who's not, and be part of an action plan design to either build that person or those people up, which honestly in my opinion is the best solution if possible. Okay. Or, hate to say it, figure out how to exit them out of the company if they're not the talent needed to turn the situation around. I have always been a proponent of don't hang on to bad talent. However, I've been a bigger proponent of doing everything you can to make sure that you can honestly say, we've given this individual every opportunity to step up and do what's required. We've provided coaching, we've provided training, we've provided tools, we've provided material, we've provided time, right? If you're able to say that, then you can, hopefully lessen the impact of something that's not very pleasant about exiting talent. But nonetheless, being able to figure something out where they can turn it around will definitely help the situation. Also help identify tracking mechanisms for those KPIs and a periodic review of the data. Okay, that's really important. So having the data come to you and doing nothing with it is just as bad as not providing an opportunity for somebody to grow and develop into the role. So when you get data, you have to act on it in order to move the needle forward. Just having the information doesn't do anything because it's not going to change anything. Trust me, the situation will change on itself and it's likely to go backwards. Okay. We can also assist with identifying customer service expectations and help communicate them through training. Okay, through setting up the employee for success within the role through training, through setting those expectations in their job description when they come on board, really kind of reestablishing that we are customer-centric focus, and this is where everybody's got skin in the game. Okay? All right, so we're not able to keep existing customers. Next one, we're not able to get new customers. Now, this does sound like a sales thing, and you're absolutely right. Okay? HR has the opportunity to once again have a seat at the table to help determine what the sales team actually needs. Are they looking for people with this particular skill set, this type of experience, this kind of education, and what are the competencies that are necessary in order to do the job? Now, something that HR can do is propose and seek out professional training solutions that are actually targeted for sales specifically. Okay. Also, like in the previous issue, HR can really help identify those KPIs and get that data collection in place and help just set up that distribution so that we're evaluating the output of our employees because the output is what moves the needle forward. Okay. In addition, HR should also be a significant part in analyzing the talents and the skills that are actually needed for the role. Now, the last three really surrounds business acumen. Okay, so the number 3 on the list here is revenues are okay, but profitability not so much. Okay, profitability is tanking. So this is where HR actually does have a skin in the game when it comes to managing the bottom line of the company. Not completely, but we do impact it significantly. Now, the top 2 lines in any P&L statement are going to be expenses relating to benefits and payroll. And it's probably going to be benefits first, payroll second. And if you have a light benefits program, it'll be payroll first, benefits second, more than likely. All right. So HR should be really taking the time to analyze with their benefits broker on ways that they can save costs surrounding the benefits and healthcare costs associated with like employee utilization and things like that. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. If you're in small group, here's a little tip of the day. If you're in small group, you're not going to have access to that kind of data. That's just the way this works, all right? But when you get into mid-size and large group, well, then every month and every quarter, you should be receiving information from your benefits broker, and this comes in the form of a report, and these are the analytics. So you can actually take a look at how claims are being processed and where your key expense points are. So for instance, who as an employee are your top 5 to 10 highest claim fees and charges assessed? What are those highest costs on specific employees? You won't know who the employees are because they cannot reveal that information, but they can certainly explain what it is and what the classification it is. So like if you have somebody who's with a heart attack, or if you have somebody who has had to have massive extensive surgery, okay? By default, if you're a small organization, you're pretty much going to know who those people are. But when you get into a larger mega corporation, you're not, okay? But you can still get that information, right? You can also get information from a dependent as to which dependents are spending the money, right? When their claims are high and they're of high dollar amount, okay? You can see those things. You can also see what the reasons and the purposes are, right? Is it psychological? Is it physical? All right? Is it, what are your highest levels of prescriptions that are out there? Okay, all those things add up. It'll also be able to help you identify what's called utility. And utility is how your employees, which are also known as members, and the dependents using the benefits program. If Junior has what is a comeback again chronic ear infection, are they going to the emergency room for treatment, or are they going to a walk-in clinic? Those two have very distinct different costs, and off the top of your head, I'm going to guarantee you that the emergency room visit is going to be way more expensive than walking into a walk-in clinic. And these days, there are actual telemeds. There's an app for this. I promise you, you can actually talk to a physician online through an app. It's an actual legitimate visit. I had bronchitis for 3 months and didn't leave the house almost really for 3 months. Every time I started getting better and I go back to work, I'd have a relapse. It happened twice. It was awful. It was some of the worst 3 months of my life. And so actually I wound up developing a medical relationship with a physician through this app, and he's now my primary care. I know that sounds kind of goofy, but all I need to do is just, get my vitals and send them over to him and, talk to him whenever I have a question or a problem or anything, and it's a viable claim. So that's what's called utilization or utility, okay? Now, when you're working through this actually is not going to be a very quick turnaround unless you're really kind of working towards open enrollment. And what I mean by that is collecting all that data, all right, and trying to figure out how you can make those adjustments. But when you're going through your open enrollment and you're tweaking your plan year, that's when your broker should be able to help you run some analyses on how we can bring costs down, because it's a perfect time of the year to do that, okay? You also want to analyze the limited amount of data available. Like I said, that's going to be a challenge, but it is absolutely worth it, because when you do that, you're going to identify trends. I mentioned one already is utilization. Utilization will drive up cost. The other trend is going to be over in your pharmaceutical side. And it's also going to be a trend on call-ins. So like how many times your employees actually call into their nurse online. You may be able to capture that information. It kind of all depends on the reporting structure of the benefits provider. And then lastly, HR can also spend the effort to build a benefits education program to provide employees with helpful information about preventative care. And like I said earlier, as a perfect example, choosing that walk-in clinic versus the emergency room treatment. Helping them understand you guys want to do your preventative because it's going to, prevent you from having to get, deeper treatment later on down the road. Okay, so enough about that. The next one is going to be sales are too low. Okay, now here's where HR can work with leaders to determine staffing levels. And one of the things you can take a look at is there enough talent, or should the company invest in outsourced sales to help? Okay, HR can also partner with sales leaders to determine the effectiveness of the sales team effort through different types of reporting and talent analysis. It's all going to be unique to your organization. And then HR should also be prepared to start identifying a reduction in force plan in the event sales are unfortunately so low that layoffs are actually necessary. Now, a very unique strategy would be to help initiate, and I love doing this, and I've seen it work time and time again, help initiate a waste reduction effort that actually counters low revenue, which means when companies are starting to talk about cutting costs, when a waste initiative is in place, you will be amazed at how creative people actually get. And get your whole team involved with this. There's nothing more that people want to talk about than, oh my God, this is such a waste. Because then they honestly really believe that companies have those deep pockets, and then that's very conflicting for them when all of a sudden they see the company wasting resources and now they have to let employees go. So that's certainly something that you guys can work on as well. And lastly, this is the last one, and this is kind of a big one. Actually, it's not a kind of big one. This is the grand poobah of them all right here, and that is we don't have enough money. Okay, this will be one of the greatest challenges to address with leadership. Okay, and at this point, leaders are looking for the most effective and impactful solutions to keep payroll flowing smoothly. If they are not in a position where they can actually draw from their resources, this is going to be a real pain point. This is probably one of the biggest pain point out there. So HR has the ability to help come up with creative solutions around compensation, future staffing needs, and working with leaders to increase productivity and reduce those, what I call time suck efforts that are currently in place. Thus, redirecting the employee effort towards work that protects the bottom line until financial opportunities are visible and viable. So that really means that you got to really dig into cost. You got to look at what HR is spending. It also means that some of your future programs may be completely on hold because those finances just really aren't there. Or if you signed a contract with an organization to implement something, you may have to just pull it back and get that deposit back in order to make things happen. And that's just kind of part of doing business. Unless an organization is saved by some form of capital venture organization, or the bank, suddenly will go ahead and give them that loan that they've been saying no to. Really the only way to get more money in is to either cut back on costs or increase effort in order to get more money in. So it's not an easy place to be in, but those are the big pain points that HR can go ahead and really be a significant part in solving and have a seat at the table. So we're coming up against the Christmas holiday, and everybody's going to start winding down, And you know what? It's such a great time of the year. I hope you guys are really enjoying it. I do have some shout outs today. First out, I'd like to give a shout out to Tony Klukas on Instagram. Thank you so much for your comments, and I'm really happy to hear your anticipation at the time from the interview with Eddie Penny, which, by the way, was episode 37. And Kelly McSaba on Instagram, thank you also for commenting your support. It's greatly appreciated. And then I got this really awesome email from a woman by the name of Tracy Chong. I met her doing some networking, and she and her president, she and the CEO of the company, are doing something pretty cool. So the email reads, Brenda, the demands of the holiday can often cause us to forget to take time to embrace the point of the season, which is sharing with those we love and caring for, and with others we may never know. In lieu of traditional gifts or donations, Mark, our CEO, and I are both planning to visit girls' orphanages in the next few weeks in Sri Lanka and Jamaica, respectively, with gifts and donations in hand on your behalf. Wishing you and your family the happiest of holidays and incredible 2020. Thank you so much, Tracy. Oh my gosh, that's huge. And you know what? Good on you for going out and doing something like that. I think that's just absolutely fantastic. So, wish you guys the safest of trips from Sri Lanka to Jamaica. Have an awesome, awesome time. I can't even imagine how fulfilling something like that's going to be. All right, so folks, email me your questions. We've got a really good question today. And you can submit your questions on the bestpractices.work website by clicking on the podcast link from the menu, and down towards the bottom of the podcast page is a submission form for you to post your question, which I may be able to read and answer on an upcoming episode. So today's question is that is there a law that employers have to allow vacation days to full-time employees? And the answer to that is not at the federal level, but certain states may have it. Now, there's a little bit of a yeah but that comes to this, okay? We've talked about patchwork law in other episodes, which basically means that you'll have different states doing different things, and so therefore you have a patch of law here and a patch of law there, and it kind of looks like if you could visualize a quilt with different little patches in there, right? So it has a tendency to spell out a visual picture of the United States as not being necessarily unified on a specific topic. So in this case, there is something that paid leave is starting to kind of become a topic, right? If there's sick leave, there's also, in fact, we mentioned it earlier in this episode, that forfeiture on PTO is no longer being permitted in the state of Colorado. So paid time off is now being impacted, and there are certain states that are actually, and I don't remember which ones they are off the top of my head, which are requiring employers to now provide X number of hours for X number of time off for X number of hours worked. All right, I don't know, I don't remember all the details on that. I didn't want to go too deep into researching that. And then also with the federal contractors, now there is also paid sick leave. That is a requirement as being with government contractors. So vacation days, I wouldn't be surprised if something comes up, but just know that companies, let's just take a look at the federal contractor, for instance. If you have a general PTO bucket, a full PTO bucket, and you have calculated that your paid time off and your vacation now is all mixed in with this PTO, there's a certain entitlement that is now attached to the whole PTO bucket. And if you want to know more about that, I strongly recommend you talk to your employment attorney, because one of the risks is that if an employee is pushing back, if they didn't get their full PTO and they only got their paid sick leave, then the entitlement is at this point that they're entitled to that whole PTO bucket. So more and more government contractors are now starting to separate vacation from paid sick leave again, and it gets really super complicated when it comes to SCA contracts and those employees who are designated as SCA employees as well. So it's not as clean and cut and dry as it once used to be, but it kind of depends on where you are. So I thought that was an awesome question to bring forward. We've got some fun stuff coming up for 2020. And matter of fact, folks, next episode is going to air on Christmas Day. And I've got a very special guest who's coming in all the way from Australia to do this. She's fantastic. And we're really going to talk about inspiration, and we're going to talk about how you can brand yourself as in this field of HR, even if you don't have experience. And so that seems to be a question I've been getting a lot, some comments. So when I'm talking to people, and I've talked to several students, they're like, we're trying to get a job, and we don't even know how to brand ourselves. Like, how do we get a job? And it's all in the branding, right? How do you say that you've got experience when you have none? That's really, really hard to do. So we've got a new Facebook group that's rolling out, and it is the Next Gen Women in HR, and which is short for the Next Generation in Women in HR. And if you want to get really great tips and information on building your skill set, this is one of two places that you'll be able to go. And the second place I'm going to announce in the next episode. So you guys are welcome to go ahead, jump in. It's a brand new group. It's out, so there's not a lot of people there, but you get to be a foundational member as a result of it. And come in. And again, on Facebook, it is the Next Gen Women in HR. And it's going to be awesome. I'm so excited about it. So you are welcome to go ahead and engage with me in that group for great tips and information on building your HR skill set. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Best Practices in HR. You'll be able to find me on LinkedIn just by my name, and that's Brenda Neckvattle, and the last name is spelled N-E-C-K, like the thing you want to choke, V as in Victor, A-T-A-L. And again, you can hop onto the website at bestpractices.work. And while you're there, jump on the mailing list and get my best practices delivered directly to your inbox. And I can guarantee you what's coming in 2020 is going to really take your game to the next level. And if you want to take your game to the next level and build something fantastic for yourself, jump on and ride along, because it's going to be impressive. It has been a busy 6 weeks in preparing for this, and I'm not even done yet. So I am super excited. This is what keeps me up at night in a really good way. 16.5-hour days working to get this stuff ready to get out to you guys, and I'm just so excited about it and look for it. Seriously, I can't stop talking about it. So anyway, I'm not going to say any more about it. It's awesome. It's exciting. It's invigorating. It's really going to launch your 2020 and your whole next year on a completely different level. And I'm just grateful that you guys are part of the ride. So with that being said, we will talk to you on Christmas Day. Have a wonderful, wonderful pre-ramp up to Christmas. Have a phenomenal Christmas Eve. And I will talk to you guys in a week. Have a good one.